I'm going to open it up for a few questions. So, there's a gentleman right at the back. There are a few hands at the back, and these lights are blinding me, so I can't pick out. If you can stand up, that would be very useful. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Paul Faithan with the Global Water Challenge. We work on safe drinking water issues in developing countries. I want to tie together a couple of the threads. One, water, education, and someone mentioned advocacy. One of the things that would be great to do if the Chamber could support it, we know that more children under 5 die from dirty drinking water than from malaria, measles, and AIDS combined. Yet there's very little relative support for safe drinking water and sanitation from the U.S. government, although there is a new law that is there to support that, the Water for the Poor Act. And in terms of advocacy, this is something that could be it's very helpful to women, very helpful to keeping girls in school, very helpful to creating economic opportunities, and I would encourage you all, if you can, to support that.
Thank you. There's a hand at the back there, there's a lady, and then there's this gentleman here in the middle.
Hi, my name is Whitney Meyer. I direct programs for the Global Fairness Initiative. I wanted to give 2 concrete examples of public-private partnerships in the workforce development area that we're working on, to give you some ideas. The first being, I think there was one group that was left out, which is informal sector workers, which represent a huge portion of the economy. In Central America, as part of the CAFTA program, we are working on informal sector development and have actually created a unique partnership with a local company that's looking to build inclusive supply chains. So it's, instead of buying their products and then turning around and selling them on the street, they're actually helping with productivity, labor standards, with the idea that eventually these informal sector workers will become part of their supply chains. Another example in India, which is a bit of a larger market, is we had a pilot program with a number of women farmers who produce organically but were not certified. We were approached by a UK-based company that was having trouble entering the Indian market, and the company has agreed to certify our women farmers in return for helping to enter the Indian market, and then we'll be sourcing agricultural commodities. So these are just 2 examples of some innovative partnerships that I think we're very excited about, and so are the companies that we're working on. And I encourage you to really think about that medium-sized business, not just the micro-entrepreneurs, but inclusive supply chains can be incredibly powerful in workforce development and economic opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you. I urge people, even if they're going to make a statement, to frame it as a question. Thank you.
Super. My name is Brian Kelly. I work for an intergovernmental organization called the International Organization for Migration. And wanted to follow up on, Akhtar, what you had mentioned about companies accused of looking out for self-interest when they're involved in corporate social responsibility activities. But first, David, thanks for bringing up the issue of the labor migrants. Just to say that the relationship with Manpower and IOM, we've really benefited from your advocacy, and thanks for that. I guess the question would be, how can we encourage companies to understand that it's perfectly okay to have a frank discussion about why a company is investing time, product, or people? Perhaps the primary reasons: license to operate, influence of government, employee recidivism, not necessarily the individuals who are going to benefit from the largesse. And we're in the real world, not the theoretical world, and it's an open secret that governments give massive amounts of humanitarian or development assistance based upon foreign policy objectives, not solely based upon needs. So I think it's quite all right for a corporation to have that mindset as well. I mean, corporations, you follow the rules like everybody else. You do no harm and try to be transparent about intentions. But quite often, when I work on establishing a relationship with companies, it's difficult to get the frank rationale behind the intention. And I'm just here to say it's okay to have a frank rationale behind that intention. And how do we get there? How do we help move that forward?
Let me see if I can get Scott and David to answer.
Just one quick comment on that. I think the world of business has some difficulty where we see no parameters, where we see no regulation at all. And, you know, I work with you a lot on international migration. 250 million people work outside of their countries of origin. But there is no flow process control and no global regulation of the movement of people around the world. And I think it gives you huge frustrations as the leading organisation recommending policy, best practices and how government should do it better. But let's not forget, the movement of workers around the world is driven solely by national interests. National interests are controlled by national political constructs, and you get a very divisive situation in the flow of workers from one place to another. And they move for three reasons, as you probably know: climate change and natural disaster. Yep. Second one is economic, which is the biggest one of the 250 million. And the third one is conflict situations. And all of those present business, when we interact with that, with a huge difficulty, because there is no control of the movement of people.
There's also a period of time it takes for a government to become responsible about its own migration issues. I'm not sure where we would put a place like Sudan on that map, but where you've got displaced refugees such as in Azerbaijan from a war that was 15 years ago. It took that government some time to actually coalesce around the needs of those people. So therefore, as a company active in those countries, that would be a subject of discussion only when it finds consciousness in our government interlocutors. One of the things that I think in a lot of companies you don't want to be accused of quote-unquote boiling the ocean. There's so many issues that we can attack with very limited resources. We have to demonstrate that the resources we put into place actually have impact, and therefore there's an implicit prioritization there, and we are very much instructed by the government that we're working with how that prioritization should be, even if we don't agree with it. And there may be other ways that we try to raise the consciousness and expand the concern articulation of that government around the request for resources, but we have to put those resources where they say that it will work for them and where it fits in with the values that we're trying to promote.
This issue that is out there of the movement of workers is going to be one of the critical issues of the next 50 years. If you look at Europe, for instance, the 27 nations, we lose 55 million workers in the next 17 years because of demographics, fertility rates. And of course, because of the financial crisis that we've been through, countries have successively been putting up more barriers to effective migration, even of skilled workers. And we see that in the Americas as well. And it is going to be a critical issue for us to resolve in partnership, I think, private sector and organisations like yours.